Ireland have named their 40-man squad to tour New Zealand, and what a team it is. But as All Blacks fans, guys, we need to admit one really important point. They've had the wood over us in recent years. Today I'm going to break down the squad, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into why Ireland have been so good in recent years and why I believe this will be a super competitive series. Roll that intro. Kia ora everyone, my name's Zach, I love rugby, welcome back to Haka Time Rugby. So there it is guys, Andy Farrell has named his 40-man squad ready to tour New Zealand, and it's a very interesting squad with a lot of points that we need to touch on. I managed to catch the press conference with Andy Farrell this morning, and he made a couple of important notes. First thing he said is that he sees this as a 5-match test series. Every game is a test match in his eyes. That means that they're going to utilise the full breadth of this squad, and that players that wouldn't typically get a run at test level will get an opportunity to play here. So we're going to see all kinds of Irish players here fronting up in New Zealand, which is exciting in itself. He also said that this is the start of the World Cup preparation. So they are really looking at combinations here. He mentioned that there aren't too many tours, or a lot of these players have not been on tours outside of the Lions squad. So this is an opportunity to see how players interact with each other, how players, fit within an environment that is going to be super important for a World Cup type preparation. So a lot riding on these selections and a lot riding on these games. As All Blacks fans, we should be very familiar with a lot of these names. A number of these players even featured back in the 2012 tour of New Zealand. People like Tyke Furlong, Cian Healy, Johnny Sexton, Peter O'Mahony. These are all names that have been around a long time. They're names that have featured as part of Lions tours in the past. And obviously in recent results that Ireland have had against us, these are guys that have been front and centre in those matches. Before we go into in-depth in the squad, I just want to give some context for everyone around why I believe Ireland is so good and why I believe that this series will be highly competitive. First things first, let's look at recent history between the All Blacks and Ireland. So right here is the last 5 games, the 5 encounters that we've had, and you can see here Ireland have won 3 of those. So they definitely have the wood over us in terms of recent history and recent results. I will note that 3 of those games have been played in Ireland, and I think the hometown advantage obviously for the series is going to be massive. But that aside, this has been a super competitive team that has managed to beat the All Blacks, more times than not in the last 5 games. So we have to keep that point in mind. If we look back on recent history, so the last sort of annual cycle of games, including the Six Nations and end-of-year tours last year, Ireland only lost a single game in the last 12 months. So they are a team that has very much not only proven that in recent years that they can compete with the best teams in the world. They've shown that they can get the better of the All Blacks as well in recent matches, and they've been able to be super consistent in the last annual cycle. So I think that on results alone, we need to admit that the Irish are coming in super competitive into the series. For many All Blacks fans who don't really pay close attention to European rugby, this might come as quite a surprise in terms of the success that they've had in the last 4 or 5 years. But I want to dive deeper into why Ireland have had that success. Obviously, Andy Farrell has been a big part of that. His recent appointments and recent results have been outstanding. But to really understand this, we need to look back into a number of layers, because Ireland rugby is a great model, which I think is a model that has previously worked well for New Zealand, and a model that other teams could look at adopting to ensure long-term and sustained success. And to do that, we need to start by looking at Leinster. Now, Leinster as a club make up a significant portion of both the usual match day 15 for Ireland and 23, as well as, the overall squad. So at any one time, the 15 starting players for Ireland, 12 of them, 13 of them, sometimes 11 of them, they all come from Leinster. So Leinster is a significant cog in the overall Irish rugby system. And not only are they important to the national team, but their successes have spoken for themselves the last 4 or 5 years. So here's a quick snapshot of their results. You can see here in Pro 14, obviously they've had a sustained period of success there, winning the last 4 Pro 14s before it was rebranded with the inclusion of the South African teams into the URC. Super competitive games over the weekend, and unfortunately Leinster did drop in the semi-final to the Bulls, but what you're seeing here is a pattern of continued success. Even if it is semi-final level, sort of finals level. And the same is true in the Champions Cup. You can see here that they have been within finals, within the semi-final picture more times than not in the last 4 or 5 years. So there is a real pattern of success here for Leinster, and that success is very much flowing into the Irish national squad. As I mentioned, at any one time, the starting 15 can be 12 players from Leinster. So it is a huge portion of why they are successful. They're able to bring the same style that they adopt at Leinster into the national game, and those continuity and those partnerships work really well and translate well to the national squad. Leinster also brings to the table a world-class academy that provides pathways for younger players through to both the club level and international level. And a number of the Irish squad members are products of that Leinster academy. It's also worth mentioning that, the under-20 squad, the Irish under-20 squad has had, a lot of success in recent years as well. So in 2016, they were runners-up at the Rugby World Cup. And with that, there were a lot of names that feature now in this Irish squad. People like James Ryan, like Andrew Porter, like Hugo Keenan, all members of that 2016 squad. And, for some of these guys, the core of this team, you're starting to see that they've had a continual amount of success over a number of years, whether it be runners-up at under-20 level World Cup, whether it be club level victories in the last 4 or 5 years, and then now into what I've shown you as part of the national squad, having continued success. So there is a real DNA of success that is building here, and it's all built on, the foundational components of the game. So coming from grassroots into academy, into club, into national level. And Ireland is showing very clearly that they have a national framework which supports success at the top level. That's something that we as All Blacks fans have always spoken about. Those pathways from club level into NPC level, Super Rugby level, and into, the national squad. There is a clear national framework that supports success at the national level, and that is something that Ireland in particular do very, very well. So back to looking at the squad, guys, and as I mentioned, it's a very experienced looking lineup. There are 5 uncapped players, but this match day 15 and 23 almost choose themselves to a degree, with a couple of variations that Andy Farrell may look to adopt as he selects specific assignments once teams are named. But when we'll look at the props, very settled lineup, a couple of obvious names there: Tyke Furlong, Cian Healy, Andrew Porter, who has been started against New Zealand last year. I actually think Andrew Porter had the wood over Nepo Laulala, particularly at set-piece time, so that's going to be an area that he will want to get back, although the scrum really did shore up once Kyle Tuinukuafe entered the game previously, so that's probably a big reason why he was called up into the squad despite leaving to France later in the year. In terms of the hookers, so we have Dan Sheehan is likely to start. Unavailable is Rowan Kelleher, who has been great at international level and a real mainstay in there. So they will certainly miss his dynamic running around the park during this. But Dan Sheehan is a highly experienced player who will not let the team down for sure. When we look at the locks, obviously a lot of those names we've touched on already. We've got James Ryan, Ian Henderson. I mean, these are players that played against us last year, have been mainstays of this team for some time. So again, very settled look about the lock selections. The back row, I mean, Caelan Doris is the name that jumps out firstly to me. Josh van der Flair, Jack Conan, these again are players that we've seen before. Caelan Doris for me is right up there in terms of best sixes running around at the moment. Highly athletic, great at the breakdown, gets around the track really well, scored a great try against the All Blacks late last year as well. Looking at the scrum half, so Jamison Gibson Park, Connor Murray has been around and I think he was part of the team that toured in 2012 as well. So again, a huge amount of experience here. Jamison Gibson Park has certainly, surpassed Connor Murray as the first choice scrum half here. But what's interesting is his partnership with Johnny Sexton. I've noticed that he is very, very quick ball distribution and great decision making, and it's all built on that platform that is laid by the forwards. So, a real area of challenge that the All Blacks should be looking at is trying to disrupt the breakdown just to stop the free-flowing nature of the ball delivery that Jamison Gibson Park gives to Johnny Sexton. When we look at the fly halves, so Johnny Sexton, Joey Carberry, again, 2 names that have been around a long, long time. Both will feature at the test level, obviously. And in the centres, similar thing. So Gary Ringrose, Bundy Aki, Robbie Henshaw. I'm really looking forward to seeing Frawley in action. have heard huge raps around him. He will get an opportunity at New Zealand against the New Zealand Maori and possibly even force his stakes into the national team as well, or into the team to face the All Blacks as well. And then the back three, so Hugo Keenan, James Lowe, Kiwi fan, should be well familiar with Jordan Lama back in here. Keith Earls. I mean, these are names, as I mentioned, this is an extremely settled squad for Ireland. And I think there is a huge contest that we're going to see in this series. And as Andy Farrell mentioned, all 5 games are considered a test match in his eyes. So this squad is going to get a lot of playing time. They are going to be put in all sorts of difficult situations. The New Zealand Maori squad was actually just announced today, so I will do a video on that shortly. Just to describe the challenge that Ireland can expect from the New Zealand Maori team that has been named. But that squad in particular is a very experienced looking squad with a lot of talent. So when Andy Farrell says that all 5 games here are at test match level, he is not kidding. And as I mentioned, I will deep dive the Māori All Black squad and give you a sense of the challenge that is coming. But this Irish squad will have their hands filled from the time they land until the time they leave. And that is what makes this test series so exciting. I cannot wait. But I hope for All Blacks fans in particular, I hope just sort of outlining the view, or at least the skill set and the challenge that presents itself to us, gives you some insight into why the Irish is going to be such a challenge going into this test series. A lot of people are telling me this is going to be a 3-0 whitewash, 5-0 whitewash. I mean, this is a different team, and maybe if you look back far enough into history, you can say, okay, well, the All Blacks have well and truly dominated Ireland, but in recent years, it has been very tight, and Ireland has looked the better team on more often than not. So let's just expect this to be a fantastic test series with a lot of questions open that will be answered as part of those 5 games. As I mentioned, I cannot wait, guys. And make sure you join along with me, because I'm going to continue to do these types of videos, just kind of building up the test series. There is a playlist that I've created. All of these videos will be dropped into that, and we're going to just keep building this thing up. So next, you can expect me to talk about the New Zealand Māori squad. I will eventually do a deep dive into the teams that I would select going into this test series for both the All Blacks and the Māori All Blacks. Areas of success that Ireland have had against us, and where we really need to focus and improve. All Blacks teams need to improve in order to come out on top in this test series. That's it from me here, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, please hit like, subscribe. If you're getting excited about this test series, stick around with me, because we are really going to build this up, and we're going to enjoy this test series right here on Hakatime Rugby. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.